picture this. The early 1900s, before the Hoover Dam, before, the massive reservoirs we think of today.
Yeah.
A city desperate for water.
Oh, wow.
On the verge of greatness,
Yeah.
but held back by its arid landscape.
Interesting.
That city was Los Angeles.
Okay.
And its thirst for water would lead to a tale of ambition, engineering marvels, and a conflict
Wow.
that would forever shape the landscape of California. We've got a fascinating collection of sources here on the Owens Valley. Okay. And we're going to untangle this whole story together.
What's so captivating about this story is how it reveals the lengths that people will go to for progress and the unintended consequences that can ripple out, for generations.
Wow.
It's a reminder that even the most ambitious projects can have, a dark side.
So let's rewind to the late 1800s,
Right.
when a young, ambitious Irishman named William Mulholland arrived in Los Angeles.
Mulholland started as a ditch digger for the LA City Water Company, but he was clearly destined for bigger things.
Really?
He had this relentless drive, a thirst for knowledge, and a real knack for problem solving that propelled him through the ranks.
And this was at a time when Los Angeles was facing a critical water shortage.
Right.
They were completely reliant on the Los Angeles River, which was prone to both droughts and floods.
Oh, wow.
Not exactly a recipe for a thriving metropolis.
Exactly. The city's growth was literally being choked off by its lack of water.
Oh, wow.
They needed a bold solution. And that's where Mulholland and a man named Fred Eaton enter the picture.
Okay.
Eaton, a former LA mayor, had this audacious vision to divert water from the Owens Valley, hundreds of miles north, via a massive aqueduct.
It's hard to fathom the sheer scale of that idea back then.
I know.
This was before the era of heavy machinery.
Right.
Before the Hoover Dam made such feats seem almost commonplace.
It was a monumental undertaking.
Yeah.
The aqueduct would have to traverse, rugged mountains, deserts and valleys.
Wow.
All while maintaining a consistent gravity flow.
Wow.
To deliver the water to Los Angeles.
Now, Eaton was a shrewd operator.
Oh, yeah.
He began secretly buying up land and water rights in the Owens Valley.
Interesting.
Using his own money and anticipating the city would eventually need those rights.
It's a fascinating bit of maneuvering.
Yeah.
He understood the potential value of the Owens Valley's water and positioned himself to profit from it.
Wow.
Some might call it clever.
Right.
Others might call it opportunistic.
Yeah.
But it certainly added a layer of complexity to the story.
Meanwhile, Mulholland had risen to become superintendent of the LA Water Company.
Okay.
And was fully on board with Eaton's vision. He saw the aqueduct as the key to unlocking Los Angeles' future.
And remember, the Owens Valley wasn't some empty wasteland. It was home to farmers, ranchers, and the native Paiute and Shoshone people, whose lives were deeply intertwined with the valley's water.
Wow.
They had no idea that their world was about to be turned upside down.
This sets the stage for a clash of epic proportions.
Oh, yeah.
Los Angeles, desperate for water and driven by its ambition for growth, versus the residents of the Owens Valley, who were about to see their very livelihood threatened.
It's a classic story of progress versus tradition, of the needs of the many versus the rights of the few.
And in this case, the decision ultimately rested with President Theodore Roosevelt. He faced a monumental dilemma. Leave the water for the roughly 5,000 residents of the Owens Valley, or divert it to Los Angeles, a burgeoning city with population exceeding 100,000.
Talk about a tough call.
How did Roosevelt justify such a potentially impactful decision?
Roosevelt ultimately sided with Los Angeles.
Wow.
Invoking the concept of the greatest good for the greatest number.
Oh, wow.
This philosophy essentially prioritized the needs of the larger population over the interests of the smaller community in the Owens Valley.
So the fate of the Owens Valley was sealed.
It was.
And with Roosevelt's backing, construction on the Los Angeles Aqueduct began in 1907.
It's mind-boggling to think about the scale of this project.
Yeah.
Especially for its time. Over 4,000 laborers worked tirelessly for years.
Wow.
Blasting through mountains, pouring concrete, and digging miles of ditches. Tragically, 43 workers lost their lives during the construction.
Oh, no.
A testament to the harsh conditions and the inherent risks involved in such a massive undertaking.
It's a stark reminder that progress often comes at a price.
It really is.
It's easy to forget the human cost behind these grand engineering feats.
Absolutely.
Right.
The aqueduct was a testament to human ingenuity and determination. Yeah. But it also serves as a reminder that we should never forget the sacrifices made in the pursuit of progress.
And after 5 years of grueling labor, the aqueduct was completed.
Wow.
The grand opening in 1913 was a spectacle, a celebration of human achievement and the promise of a brighter future for Los Angeles.
It's almost ironic, though.
Yeah.
Amidst all the jubilation, there was one notable absence.
Oh, really?
Fred Eaton.
Oh, right.
Remember him?
Yeah.
The former mayor who had shrewdly bought up all that land in anticipation of the aqueduct.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened? Did he make his fortune?
In a surprising twist, Mulholland advised the city not to buy much of the land Eaton had acquired.
Really?
Or at least not at the inflated prices he was demanding.
Wow.
He essentially cut Eaton out of the deal, preventing him from profiting from the very project he'd helped set in motion.
That's quite a betrayal.
It is.
It sounds like there were some personal scores being settled,
right,
alongside the larger battle over water rights.
It definitely adds a layer of intrigue to the story.
Yeah.
Imagine Eaton's fury.
Right.
Seeing his dreams of riches dashed.
Wow.
Just as the water began flowing towards Los Angeles.
So the water flowed to Los Angeles.
It's transforming the city,
yeah,
fueling its growth, and paving the way for it to become the sprawling metropolis we know today.
Exactly.
But back in the Owens Valley,
yeah,
a different story was unfolding.
Right.
A story of loss, resistance, and a conflict that would become known as the Water Wars.
Wow.
Yeah.
As Los Angeles flourished, the Owens Valley began to wither. The once lush meadows and fertile farmlands were gradually transforming into a dust bowl.
It's hard to imagine the impact on the people who call the Owens Valley home.
It was devastating.
Yeah.
Their way of life, their very identity was tied to the land and its water. As the water table dropped, crops failed, livestock perished, and the once thriving agricultural communities struggled to survive.
And what about the Paiute and Shoshone people who had lived in the valley for generations? How did this impact them?
Their situation was particularly dire. They had already faced immense pressure to assimilate and relinquish their traditional ways of life. Now, with their water sources dwindling, they were pushed further to the margins. It's a tragic reminder of how progress for one group can often come at the expense of another.
It's a complex issue, and the Owens Valley story really brings those complexities to light. Now, as the situation in the valley deteriorated, tensions began to rise. The residents, feeling betrayed and desperate, started to resist Los Angeles's relentless expansion.
So they were just going to sit back and watch their valley dry up?
Absolutely not. They took matters into their own hands. There were protests, legal challenges, and even acts of sabotage against the aqueduct itself.
Sabotage? What did that look like?
Well, remember those dynamite explosions I mentioned earlier? They weren't just random acts of vandalism. Frustrated residents, driven to desperation, targeted the aqueduct, hoping to disrupt the flow of water to Los Angeles.
It was a desperate measure, a sign of just how dire the situation had become.
It was a symbolic act of defiance, a way for them to make their voices heard, to show Los Angeles that they wouldn't go down without a fight.
It sounds like things were reaching a boiling point.
They were. And as tensions escalated, two figures emerged as leaders of the resistance. Mark and Wilfred Watt, two brothers who had deep roots in the Owens Valley.
What made these brothers decide to take on this fight?
They were prominent figures in the community, respected businessmen with a strong sense of justice. They saw firsthand how Los Angeles's actions were devastating the valley, and they felt a moral obligation to stand up for their neighbors and their way of life.
So did they try to reason with Los Angeles to find a compromise?
They did attempt negotiations, hoping to reach an agreement that would preserve some of the Owens Valley's agriculture while still providing water for Los Angeles. But the city held all the cards. They controlled the water, the land, and the political leverage. Negotiations proved futile.
It's a classic David versus Goliath scenario. The small community fighting for its survival against a powerful and determined city.
Exactly. And as negotiations broke down, the conflict intensified. The most dramatic act of resistance came in 1924 when a group of Owens Valley residents led by Mark Watt staged a daring raid on the aqueduct.
A raid? This sounds like something out of a Western movie.
It was a bold move. They drove to the aqueduct in a caravan of Model T cars, overpowered the girds, and opened the valves, sending the water gushing back into the Owens River.
It must have felt like a victory, even if it was temporary.
It was a symbolic victory. A moment of defiance that captured national attention. Newspapers across the country reported on the water wars brewing in California, highlighting the growing divide between the city and the valley.
So did this act of rebellion force Los Angeles to back down?
Not exactly. They responded by increasing security around the aqueduct, sending armed guards to protect it. But the residents of the Owens Valley were undeterred. They continued to resist, staging protests, disrupting construction, and keeping the pressure on Los Angeles.
It's amazing to think about their resilience, their refusal to give up.
They were fighting for their homes, their livelihoods, their very way of life. They knew that if they lost the water, they lost everything.
So did this conflict ever reach a resolution?
Well, in a way, yes. But it wasn't the resolution the Owens Valley residents had hoped for. Los Angeles, facing growing pressure and negative publicity, eventually agreed to negotiations.
It sounds like a glimmer of hope.
It appeared so at the time. The Watt brothers, representing the Owens Valley, traveled to Los Angeles to try and hammer out a deal.
Did they manage to secure a fair agreement for their community?
Sadly, no. Los Angeles, despite its willingness to negotiate, had no intention of making any real concessions.
So it was a betrayal all over again?
Essentially, yes. While they pretended to negotiate in good faith, they continued their strategy of buying up land and water rights, effectively tightening their grip on the valley's resources.
It's heartbreaking to think about the Owens Valley residents being outmaneuvered and ultimately defeated.
It was a crushing blow for them. Their hopes for a fair resolution were dashed, and their dreams of preserving their way of life seemed to slip away with the diverted water.
What a tragic turn of events.
Yeah.
And what about the Watt brothers? What happened to them after the negotiations failed?
Their story takes another sad turn. They were later convicted of embezzlement and imprisoned, leaving the Owens Valley community feeling betrayed and leaderless.
It seems like the Owens Valley residents faced setback after setback.
They did. With their leaders imprisoned and their water resources steadily dwindling, they were left with few options.
It's a stark reminder of the power dynamics at play. A powerful city driven by its own needs was able to override the rights and well-being of a smaller community.
It raises profound questions about progress, ambition, and the often unseen costs of development. While William Mulholland was being hailed as a hero in Los Angeles, the architect of the city's prosperity, the Owens Valley was bearing the brunt of his ambition.
What a contrast. Celebration in one place, devastation in another. It seems like a classic tale of unintended consequences. But did Mulholland ever face any repercussions for his actions, for the damage inflicted on the Owens Valley?
His reckoning would come, but not in the way anyone might have expected. While Mulholland basked in the glory of his engineering triumph, a tragedy was brewing that would forever tarnish his legacy, a tragedy that would force him to confront the human cost of his ambition.
So Mulholland's ambition, led to the success of the aqueduct and the growth of Los Angeles.
Right.
But it also fueled all this resentment in the Owens Valley and ultimately contributed to their hardship.
Exactly.
What happened next?
Wow.
Did Los Angeles ever acknowledge the damage they caused?
Well, the city's focus really remained on ensuring their continued growth. And that led to another ambitious project, the St. Francis Dam.
Right.
This massive concrete structure was designed to store even more water for the ever-expanding city.
So another monumental engineering project, spearheaded by Mulholland, I presume?
You guessed it.
Okay.
Mulholland's reputation as a brilliant engineer was solidified with the success of the aqueduct.
Right.
And he was eager to further cement his legacy with the St. Francis Dam.
But you mentioned a tragedy.
Yes.
That would tarnish his legacy.
I did.
Did something go wrong with the dam?
Tragically, yes.
Oh, wow.
Driven by the urgency to meet the city's growing water demands.
Right.
Mulholland kind of pushed the project forward with haste.
Okay.
Overlooking some crucial geological concerns and relying heavily on his own intuition rather than, rigorous engineering analysis.
Overconfidence can be a dangerous thing.
You said it.
Especially when dealing with forces of nature as powerful as water.
And in this case, Mulholland's overconfidence had devastating consequences.
What happened?
In 1928, just 2 years after the dam's completion,
wow,
disaster struck. While the reservoir was being filled for the first time, warning signs started to appear.
Oh, no.
Water began seeping from the base of the dam.
Oh, wow.
Alarming the dam keeper, who immediately contacted Mulholland.
You'd think that would have set off alarm bells.
You'd certainly think so.
Right.
But Mulholland, convinced of the dam's structural integrity, dismissed the seepage as normal.
Really?
Assuring everyone that there was no cause for concern.
Oh, wow. So his confidence proved tragically misplaced.
It was a fatal miscalculation.
Wow.
In the dead of night, the dam catastrophically failed.
Oh, my gosh.
Unleashing a torrent of water that swept through the valley below.
Wow.
Obliterating everything in its path.
How much water are we talking about?
Well,
what was the scale of the destruction?
A wall of water estimated to be 140 feet high.
Wow.
Roared down San Francisco Canyon at 18 miles per hour.
Oh, my gosh.
Destroying homes, bridges, and entire towns in its path.
Wow.
Over 400 people lost their lives in the disaster.
Oh, my gosh.
Many swept away in their sleep with no warning.
That's a staggering loss of life.
It is.
How did Los Angeles respond to this tragedy?
The city was in shock and mourning.
Yeah.
An immediate inquest was launched to determine the cause of the dam's failure. And Mulholland, once hailed as a hero, now faced intense scrutiny and blame.
It must have been a crushing fall from grace for him.
It was.
Yeah.
He testified at the inquest.
Okay.
Accepting full responsibility for the tragedy.
Really?
Don't blame anyone else, you just fasten it on me, he stated. If there was an error in human judgment, I was the human.
It's a powerful statement.
It is.
Acknowledging the weight of his responsibility.
It was a moment of profound accountability.
Right.
But it couldn't erase the devastation that had occurred.
Right.
Mulholland, haunted by the loss of life.
Yeah.
Retired from public life.
Wow.
His once bright legacy forever tarnished by the St. Francis Dam disaster.
It's a tragic end to a story that began with such ambition and promise.
It is.
The St. Francis Dam disaster serves as a stark reminder of the potential consequences of unchecked ambition.
Right.
And the importance of thoroughness and humility in engineering projects.
Absolutely.
So what ultimately became of the Owens Valley?
Ooh.
Did it ever recover from the loss of its water?
The valley never fully recovered.
Oh, wow.
The once thriving agricultural community was decimated.
Yeah.
And the ecosystem suffered irreparable damage, while some water was eventually returned to the Owens River.
Okay.
As part of legal settlements and environmental mitigation efforts. The landscape remains altered.
A sobering reminder of the enduring impact our actions can have.
Yeah.
On the environment and on communities.
It is.
What about the Paiute and Shoshone people?
Right.
How did they fare in the aftermath of all this?
They continue to face hardship.
Okay.
Their traditional ways of life disrupted.
Yeah.
Their access to water and land restricted. However, they demonstrated incredible resilience.
Wow.
Adapting to the changing circumstances and advocating for their rights.
Is there anything happening today to try to address the historical injustices and ongoing water issues in the Owens Valley?
Yes, there are ongoing efforts to find a balance between the needs of Los Angeles and the Owens Valley. The Owens Valley Indian Water Commission, representing several of the valley's indigenous tribes, continues to negotiate with the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, seeking to secure water rights and address environmental concerns.
Sounds like there's still a long way to go.
It does.
But at least there's some dialogue happening.
It's a complex situation with no easy solutions.
Right.
But it's encouraging to see that these conversations are taking place.
Yeah.
The Owens Valley story, despite its tragic elements, can serve as a catalyst for important discussions about water management, environmental sustainability, and the rights of marginalized communities.
The Owens Valley story is a powerful reminder that progress often comes at a cost.
It really is.
And it's crucial to consider the long-term consequences of our actions.
Absolutely.
We hope this episode has provided you with some valuable insights and encouraged you to think more deeply about these complex issues.
It's a story that continues to resonate today, reminding us of the importance of responsible resource management, respect for the environment, and a commitment to social justice.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Owens Valley.
Thank you.
We hope this has inspired you to explore this story further.
Absolutely.
And if you're enjoying these deep dives, don't forget to subscribe for more thought-provoking explorations into the topics that matter most to you.